And you are live.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is the House Education Committee on January 22nd, 2025. So one of the things that we need to do, or certainly I need to do, is we need to weigh in on the Budget Adjustment Act. It's generally a fairly routine task, and we're going to hear more about sort of like the Agency of Education. It is what it sounds like. We're adjusting the current budget that we are in, and but there's often some unforeseen policy issues that we have to deal with. There may be a change in funding that there may be a difference of opinion on. One of the areas within that is still working through changes we made in the adult education programs in the state. We phased out the high school completion program, sort of brought in an adult diploma program. It's been a good change in terms of the funding system. It allows all of our adult education programs a more countable on the whole budget each year. But there are still some unforeseen sort of consequences that we need to work through. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that from some folks with the Vermont Adult Education and Literacy Network. We're going to move right ahead with that. Welcome, introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Michelle Post. I'm the Executive Director of Northeast Kingdom Learning Services, and we service the Orleans, Essex, and Caledonia counties. I also live in Irisburg, Vermont.
And I'm Brian Kravitz, the Director of Outreach and Workforce Development at Central Vermont Adult Education, and I'm a resident of Waterbury.
So first of all, we want to applaud all of the great work that happened last legislative session. By the legislation that was passed, there is now a predictable and sustainable way to fund adult education and literacy in the state through the funding formula, which is fabulous. And, we kind of got to that place where, we came together, we identified where financially we were having to come ask for budget adjustments, for one-time funding. And through that legislation, we really just, you nailed it. You got this great funding formula for us. So the Budget Adjustment Act, the importance right now is that when that was established, we had to guesstimate the number of students that would be put into the formula. And so we guesstimated it, and it turned out to be lower than what was actually served. And so when the agency finalized our FY24 numbers, it actually meant that there was more money through that funding formula that needed to come to the adult education providers. And so that's what the agency has put into their budget adjustment request. That amount recognizes that difference in students. So so much positive has come from that, and the field is so appreciative of that. One of the challenges, right, when you change something over is unintended consequences, right? The things that you didn't see coming. And one of the challenges that we had is that there were a body of students that had a signed high school completion program, meaning it was a contract between the school, the student, and the adult ed provider. It was all signed, and it laid out exactly everything that student needed to complete in order to earn their high school diploma from that participating high school. There were some students that didn't quite get that finished, and the hope was that the ADP would be rolled out quickly, the new adult diploma program, so that we wouldn't have a lapse in time. Unfortunately, the timing challenge created where we now have about approximately 100 students in the state that are in this place of limbo. And so I'm gonna let Brian talk to you a little bit about that. Before I pass it over though, we did send you all some information that can kind of give you some backstory of where we are. There was the urgent need memo, which really, speaks to, why we needed to do what we did. The report study, and our network's response to the study. And that was the study that, where the legislators and the agency came together and made recommendations, one of which was to sunset the high school diploma program.
So there's really two parts to the BAA. The first is the financial part, and as Michelle said, that's really to fill in the gaps. And I just want to say that that's really a one-time thing. The guesstimate, the legislation is that our funding is going to be based on a 2-year average. And had we done an average of FY22 and FY23, FY22 and FY23, FY22 was still in those COVID numbers. So our student numbers were way down and we would have been coming back asking for a one-time budget adjustment. Moving forward, so what they did was guesstimate on FY24. We did FY23 and FY24. And this, for FY26, the numbers are again going to be based on FY23 and 24. So they're going to be real numbers moving forward. That really makes this a one-time. So we do ask that you support that. And the second part is.
And that is already in the BAA.
It's in the BAA and it's in the governor's budget. The second part is the addition of some notwithstanding language. And if there's the memo, that's the BAA notwithstanding memo, that has a little, it just has some language that really addresses how we can help those students who had signed high school completion plans, who have either completed or will complete this fiscal year, and help them to get a diploma. So for instance, I know we have some students. We have one who has been accepted to university in Europe, cannot go until they get that diploma. We have another one who, a single mother who's been working for a company, has been guaranteed, once you get your high school diploma, you will go into the management training program, and they're in limbo. They're unable to get there. So that notwithstanding language, and we would ask that you add it to the memo, to your memo going to appropriations. The addition of that language will really allow them that outlet to be able to graduate and get through, and be able to get their diplomas that they've worked for. We also ask that there may be a loophole to that perhaps you add something that says to the fact at the end, even if the ADP pilot has already started, this notwithstanding will will be in effect. The reason for that is that what may happen is that there may be pushback that says, but now we have the ADP, so they can just transfer to the ADP, and that really creates a whole other level of anxiety for people that, they've done what they're supposed to do. They've signed a contract, and that's, the best way for them to go rather than, yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm new. I don't understand what happened. So you had some kids who were finishing high school requirements. So what stopped the progress?
So, well, let me just say, they're
Thank you.
they're not just kids. We serve at age
Right.
16 plus, so
Okay.
a lot are much older.
Okay.
As I said, there's a single mother.
Yep.
So what had happened was when the high school completion program sunsetted,
Okay,
they gave, the AOE gave a sunset period for that.
right. Just wanted to put it all under one.
Yeah, and then it was supposed to transfer to the ADP.
Right.
That sunset period was very, very short, and it didn't really take into account these 100 or so students who were getting done, who are done at this point.
So the requirements different or something, you said?
The requirements under ADP may be a little bit, ADP has not yet started. We are now, we're 7 months into the year and it has not begun.
Okay, I get it.
So
Okay.
that's where we are. It will start, I think, February 1st, they're talking about it starting as a pilot. And that's why we're asking for that, that other language to say,
Okay.
just even if the ADP has started, let's let them graduate and follow the plan that they've already signed.
Right, because regardless if the ADP program does roll out February 1st, that would mean all of these students that have already completed or are on the cusp of completion will now have to extend time out further to have whatever they've done transferred into, see if it, matches. So, that's why it's critical that this language be strengthened a little bit. And it's just addressing this one body of students one time. This is not something that would ever need to be addressed again because the ADP program will be fully rolled out for next fiscal year.
Basically, they've fallen in this area where, high school completion program has ended. ADP hasn't started.
Got it.
They've fulfilled all of their requirements for high school completion. They're essentially, or are on the cusp of, and then they're essentially awaiting a high school diploma from the high school
Right.
that they have an agreement with.
Yeah, I liken it to, they're in a holding pattern. They're just circling the airport, waiting for a runway to open, and there's no runway.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
Not really, just, I think there's been such great momentum. I've been with adult education and literacy for 25 years. And I have seen, evolutions of our work. And I am probably the most optimistic I have ever been about adult education and literacy in the state. Having sustainable, predictable funding to support this work. Being able to spend more time on project development and less time on trying to, go after, one-time funding. We've got incredible workforce development programs that have already been lifted up and are continuing to be lifted up. And that's where we should be putting our resources, our time and energy, right? And having predictable, sustainable funding will allow that and will increase the outcomes and the performance measures for the state as a whole.
Great. I know that there are other sort of upcoming potential issues that we probably don't need to address today, but we do have a little bit of time just concerning ADP, high schools, different requirements to get high school diplomas. Could you talk a little bit about that just as a preview for the committee?
So actually, I think the brunt of that work is actually going to start this Friday. Because one of the other recommendations of the study committee was that a group be formed with adult ed providers, with high schools, with the Agency of Education to really flesh out proficiency-based graduation requirements of an adult student. So there will be one set of proficiency-based graduation requirements that an adult student would have to meet, regardless if they live in Bennington County, Essex County, Chittenden County. And so the agency has set up a meeting for this Friday. We're working with Pat Fitzsimmons and her team around proficiency base. So it's a great collaboration of the partners at the table are the ones that need to be there to do this work. And so that's going to start. So I think what you're going to see is, more progress. And what would be wonderful is if, as the ADP pilot is started up and put out, that we could come back and that we could update you on what that looks like and the work of that committee.
That's great, yeah.
And the AOE has put out a portrait of an adult learner. It's on their website. And that really talks about the proficiencies for adults. And those are based on the College and Career Readiness Standards, which is CCRS, which is a subset of the Common Core. So, with the understanding that what someone who's 25, 35, 45, what their proficiencies require are different than perhaps someone who's 15, 16, 17.
Great. And just for the committee's sake, I think one of the issues that will come out of this is that to get an adult diploma, at least current language, you need to sort of be a student that is assigned to a high school. And to get a high school diploma, you have to get it from a high school, but you can get it through the adult diploma program. As we now know, every high school has different graduation requirements. And some of them are unique and have requirements that an adult diploma program may not offer. And so how do you make those mesh together? At the same time, ADP will serve students 16 and up. So you may have students who say, well, it's going to be easier for me to get my diploma if I drop out of my high school, unenroll from my high school and go through the adult diploma program. And so are you setting up incentives going more with it? These are going to be big issues you guys are all going to have to work through, but it's great that you've got a task force that's going to deal with that.
And I think they've really identified that what an adult needs, and we're not talking the 16, 17-year-olds, right? more so, we're working with the population that's older, right? And so, a foreign language may not necessarily be something that's relevant to their work goals, their career goals, right? Capstone project, so there are a lot of unique features that through local control, create really robust, local diplomas. So what this team is charged with is coming up with a robust adult and rigorous adult diploma that meets an adult's needs, which are different than a, 18, 19 and younger.
As a network, we believe that those high school age, the vast majority of high school age students are best served by the high school. With understanding that not all though, there are always going to be those that are disenfranchised, that have life experiences, that might have psycho-emotional disabilities. We don't want to be that quote unquote easy way out that way. And that just waters down everything. And it's not fair to the schools. It's not fair to the students.
I don't think any of our students would say it was the easy way out.
No, it's hard.
Josh, go ahead.
Back to the cohort of students that are in the holding pattern. Two questions. So what is the rough percentage that are ready to go and the rough percentage that are on the cusp or almost there?
I would say you're talking close to 100% of those 100 students. I mean, I would not suspect that any of them would not be finalized of every body of their work by the end of this fiscal year.
Okay,
I
so
think that at CVAE, Center for Vermont Adult Ed, we have more who are almost done. We kind of put the brakes on for the last 7 months because we didn't know what the outlet was. We've said, well, let's slow things down, and we've been trying so hard to insulate them from this, but it's a source of frustration. We have, I think, a couple who have completed, but there are those they're right there. We've just said, we don't know how it's gonna end, so.
so what would the time frame be to get them there, right? So, letting it hang out there for a year or two.
June 30th of this year.
June
would be-
30th this
yeah,
year.
it would be
Everybody
during
should be
this-
ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at this point, even if ADP rolls out February 1st, we're probably not going to be able to start implementing plans until March. And then you've got March, April, May, June, and the year's done. So any of those students, you create a new plan, or they wouldn't be far enough along in their other plans that you would then be able to transition into a new plan.
So it'd be safe to say June 30th would be a
Absolutely.
good date for it to just, this program to end, anyone who didn't finish.
We have a
To the
lot,
new one.
we have a lot more students who actually have active high school completion plans, but there may be early on in it, or we write phased plans. We do, we start with the first phase. Let's get this done, then see what your goals are. A lot of our students, they don't have career goals. They come in, it doesn't matter what their age is. They've never experienced it and had that freedom. So we start with, let's do the basics, it's almost like the core courses, and then let's move on to those more, and those ones will become ABP because those plans were not complete, they weren't, and they're long-term.
And there's a lot of self-exploration that happens for students that come to us. It's not just about their academics. So of course, we look at where they are academically and you immediately start working on skill building in whatever deficit areas there are. But the other big piece of it is there's self-exploration. What are their character strengths? What are their career interests? What are their talents? What do they, what are their desires? And that takes time to really flesh that out for somebody that's never really, one, been asked the question, or two, been given the opportunity to really explore in a way that feels safe and, safe, basically.
Just kind of following up on Director Roach's question, to sort of sunset this notwithstanding as well, would you have an objection if we were to say, and this provision sunsets July 1st, 2025?
That'd be perfectly appropriate.
So unless I hear any objections from the committee that we could discuss further, I'll have our legislative council work with this language, and then we will put that as a recommendation in the BAA.
I think it's also important to explicitly say in there that regardless of the date that the ADP
Yeah.
is rolled out by the agency.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And that
Thank
will
you
help
for your time.
clear up this one group of